I look forward to learning even more about it in more of our smaller sessions and the work we'll be doing tomorrow. I am a medical oncologist at the University of Arizona, and I spend about 30% of my time teaching at the College of Medicine. And my specialty in medical oncology is in central nervous system malignancies. So with that in mind, I'm going to share 3 things, and then later on I want to tell you a little bit about pathways and share my pathway and pathways of 2 of my students. So I'm going to speak about preparation for medical school, special populations in Arizona, and oncology treatment guidelines that we use in the U.S. and in developing countries. So special populations in Arizona, specifically, I'm going to speak about our Native American veterans and our Alaskan Indian veterans. And I'd like to share with you one of the treatment guidelines, as we've heard in the past from other speakers, are the NCCN guidelines. And I brought copies with me because I wanted to show you some of the new work they're doing. We have the work that is meant for the standards of care based on research for well-resourced countries like the United States, but now they've expanded to low and core and basic resource countries. And I have 2 slides, and I just wanted to show you the difference. Okay, so the University of Arizona College of Medicine, in 1967, we started with 32 students, and now we have 120 students per year. And when I went there, we only had students from Arizona and a few of the western states. But now we open our applications to students from all 50 states. And in our class right now, 70% are from Arizona and 30% are from other states in the U.S. Okay? And we are very proud that over the last 5 years, we've been admitting our most diverse classes. And the school practices a review called EAM, the EAM model. And this considers experiences, E, attributes, A, and metrics. And for every applicant, and this is our way of valuing that our students come from many different pathways, and we actually feel that enriches our class as well as meets the needs of our patients, who I think you have all starting to understand that there's so many patients respond, are taught, change behaviors in many different ways. So, an example of the effect of diversity in our College of Medicine. This is last year's class, and Dr. Parikh just sent me the updated data for this year. But 27% are underrepresented, our students are underrepresented in medicine. This year we're up to 29%, and 23% students come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Now this is self-reported by the students. And currently, 18% of our students are Hispanic. Okay. So first thing I'd like to do is tell you about 2 students. And I thought I'd pass around their personal statements. If you all want to take a look, and you'll see some are marked out, and but we have the permission from the students. Let me start off with the first student you'll read about is a young man who's studying to be a surgeon, whose father was an immigrant from Mexico, and he worked with his father growing up. And he talks about how he learned that the quality of your work, much like what Dr. O'Donnell spoke about, and his father would take him to work. Now, as a child, he didn't realize, he thought he was helping his father work, but he didn't realize his father needed to work, and it was a way for his father to be with his family. The second paper is one of our students who's a Navajo Indian from the reservation, the Navajo reservation, and I met somebody here who worked on the Navajo reservation, And she wants to study dermatology, and she wants to be able to offer quality dermatologic care and fill the gaps of healthcare on the reservation. So I thought you might enjoy just reading their personal statements. I grew up in New York, not far from here on Long Island, and in high school, I took a class. It was an after-school activity called Future Physicians of America. Having no idea what an impact that would have on my life, I really enjoyed art, and I thought I'd go to college and be an art major. So I chose to go to northern Arizona and study ceramics and sculpture, again, for the influence of the southwestern pottery. And my father will never give me the satisfaction of admitting this, but I do see a little twinkle in his eye. He thought it might be best that I took an anatomy and physiology class for sculpture. And it made all the sense in the world to an 18-year-old that I would need to do this. And after taking, it was the second half of the year, so it wasn't the normal anatomy and physiology, it was all the abnormal, which was just fascinating to me. So I took the class, promptly called my parents and said, I just love this, and I think I'd like to change my major. So not being sure I'd get into medical school, I decided we call it lateral parallel plans. And I thought, well, I'd go to the College of Nursing, take my sciences for majors, and I could choose whether to go into research or patient care. And so I went to nursing school, and there I learned about hospice and palliative care. And I finished nursing school and applied to medical school. And while I was applying, I'd take my MCATs and finish up the second half of organic, calculus, and the second half of physics. So I worked on nights, and often I was sent to the medicine ward where I took care of patients with cancer. And not only was I taking care of patients with cancer, it was at night. And I think you could all appreciate it's a hard time for patients at night. Oftentimes they don't have visitors. There's time to think, you're alone. And I just found it so rewarding to work on these wards at this time. So I went to medical school thinking I'm going to be an oncologist and study hospice and palliative care. And when you go to medical school, one of the first things they say is try everything, right? You know, you're going to learn new things. And I did. I tried a lot of different things. But as it turned out, it was really my passion, and I ended up doing that. So I went on to my fellowship, and I chose adult oncology. And we spoke a little earlier to some of the students here of why I chose adult over pediatric. And the good news is in pediatrics, more than 80%, probably closer to 85% of our children are being cured of their cancer. It's not the case for adults, and so I felt I enjoyed end-of-life care and palliative and supportive care, so I chose the adult oncology route. And I also liked neurology, so I could do adult neuro-oncology. So I went through internal medicine and hematology oncology is my fellowship, and then palliative care. So I got a position at the University of Arizona, and that's kind of a turning point of what brought me here with you. One of my teachers had an R25 grant to develop a nutrition curriculum. I don't know if you remember Tamsin Basford, right? And she just came up to me one day as a new attending and said, Maria, I did this, and I think it would be great for the work you did. So I was awarded an R25 to develop the end-of-life career curriculum for the College of Medicine. And just really briefly, I can't tell you what your colleagues and your mentors will do for you. And When I first wrote it, I got it back and I got a score, and I didn't know if I should be happy or not. And the cancer center director said, "You have a score. What are you going to do with it?" And he said, "You just sit down, right, and you just listen to the reviewers. It'll make it better." And what he did is he sent my grant to not oncologists, but to other people. And one was a professor in the College of Public Health who just looked at it as a grant and came back. And then a colleague of Dr. O'Donnell and I, Nancy Koff, set me down and said, "Look, you have something to work with, but let's really start again." I was like, okay. So every weekend, she'd give me some work to do during the week, and I would meet with her at her home. So again, I think we heard about mentors in the past, right? A path, think about what you're doing, be organized. And so Dr. Koff, who I'm still dear friends with right now, I'll never forget her for that, and helped me with that. So you have my path and then the path of the two students. So the message is, we honor, respect, and value different paths to medical school. So I want to take a moment to share with you the EAM model, and particularly because of the work you're doing in this program. Because the work you're doing here is what we're looking for in students. Not that I want to rob you from epidemiology or some of the other programs, but if you're thinking about medicine, experiences. So you can see here how what they're looking for in a good application is much of what you're doing in your work here. Your clinical exposure, your community engagement, research, and it's the work you did with the CEASE program. Attributes, you're all quite motivated. I know it's not easy to leave your homes, and many people went to countries that they've never been to before, but your empathy that was expressed in the reports you gave about your projects, and I was really touched by your professionalism, your respect for the country that you worked in and for each other, recognizing that you can't do this alone. You really need each other, and that's so true in medicine. And then last is the metrics, and I think it was quite obvious to me you do have a rigorous program to get through the work that you do. And then we have diversity in your academic preparation. So you can see the EAM model is the university's holistic approach to evaluating our applicants. Now, I will tell you the metrics, we have a kind of a two-tier process. I think 498 or above for MCAT scores and a grade point of 3. But once you make it through the next phase, they will start looking at science versus non-science, and just to be sure you're ready for the rigors of the program itself. Okay, so a little bit more information that you might gather from the university. They have a very nice website, and I think you'll get some more information there. And Dr. Parikh also shared with me we use the AMC website for a lot of other things, but she showed me where you can go as you're preparing for medical school. And there's a book, costs $28. That's a wonderful investment. I mean, you can even share it with other students. But you can look at your portfolio, look at schools that are a good match for you. It's really quite helpful. Gives you a timeline for the application process, and it also has some real stories about applicants. What are their pathways? And I really enjoyed reading these stories. So, next topic, we'll talk about special populations. You wouldn't know that I live in Arizona by getting so thirsty in New York, so I think it becomes a way of life, drinking water there. So I I have clinic at the university, and I consult on the central nervous system malignancies at the university, but a lot of my clinical time is spent at the VA. I truly love my practice there. And the VA is the largest integrated healthcare system in the country, and it consists of 170 medical centers. Now, they're all not medical centers that can deliver all the same levels of care, but regions have levels of care where patients have access. And what is not being able to be offered at that institution, we can refer to our colleagues. And right now, you might have heard about this. There's a choice program where if people live far away or patients live too far away from us or the same standard of care, we can request that the VA pays for their care. So we are the major teaching partner of the university, and many of us have joint appointments. So I'd like to speak with you about, particularly about our American Indian and Alaskan natives. And I found this absolutely fascinating. One of my friends who has since retired was our Native American liaison. And American Indians and African natives have the highest record of service per capita compared to any other ethnic group that's represented in our veterans. And so just to give you an example of how many veterans of Native American and Alaskan ancestry is right now at my VA, the Southern Arizona, we have 1,527 veterans. Enrolled in the center is 2,025 because we have Indian Health Service and a few other places that they can receive their care. Of interest, the VA is not only men anymore. We have a few thousand women there, and we see patients with breast cancer, both men and women, so it's not only men any longer. And according to a 2010 census, over 150,000 veterans identified as American Indian and Alaskan Native alone. And there's 24,000 active duty Native service members right now. So recognizing that this group of veterans have contributed so much to our military service, there are specialized services to recognize and honor their culture. So let me share with you what I have. And I'm just going to share with you some of the Native American programs that we have. And their office used to be near mine. And they were able to burn sage as part of ceremonies. And one of our Native American healers would come. So we always had, they worked with us and our patients, and they would be able to have ceremonies, and our Native American healer would work with our doctors at the facility. One of the hospitals in town would do rounds in the ICU with a Native American healer. So you'll see here, there's a lot of activities going on, and I'm still doing more. I had the great pleasure of traveling to the Tohono O'odham reservation and visiting some of our Native American patients. And it's there I realized what we're asking of our patients to come in once a week, labs twice a week. It's a long drive. It's expensive, and it really reminded me of the hidden cost of being ill. Many of our patients, if you don't work, you don't get paid. If you don't work, you might not have that job when you get back. Who's going to take care of the children? It's expensive for gas. The roads, when it rains, are difficult to traverse. And you know, if you have a long chemotherapy, driving at night, being tired, not feeling well. Now, the VA does have resources where we have places for families to stay, we have palliative care units for symptom management, and we can subsidize some of the hotels nearby. So oncology treatment guidelines. I heard many of you speak about guidelines, standards of care, and the facilities you were at, how they were able to meet those standards. So I think it was about 4 years, really 5 years ago, the International Union for Cancer Control was in Paris, and I went to it, and I went to one of the sites, and a group from the NCCN was there. So it's a National Comprehensive Cancer Network. And let me pass this around, too. I wanted to just give you an example of what NCCN is doing, and I have slides, too. But this is an example of a country that has basic resources. So when you look through here, and it's on both sides, you're going to see black areas and gray. Gray areas and gray plus black is what we can do in a fully resourced country. But the gray is what cannot be done in countries with low resources. But the best we can do based on the data is represented here. Okay, so maybe I'll start over here. And though this is not available for all cancers, they are building upon it. For instance, central nervous system malignancies isn't done yet, but breast cancer is. So we have basic resources, core resources, and enhanced resources. Okay, so this is an example. In the US, forgive me, are you familiar with oncotype testing? Has this come up in any of the work you've done with breast cancer? Well, it's, much of the work now we're doing is on targeted therapy, so we do a lot of molecular profiling and analysis. But this is a 21 gene assay, and it helps us determine treatment based on the likelihood of recurrence. So in the US, if we can start here, you can see how we work through it. I can order this. It's ordered all the time when appropriate. And then I can follow the guidelines based on the score. And actually, this is something you can show your patients. We talk about shared decision making. We like to show patients, this is kind of our thought process. So, but in countries that don't have the resources we have, you'll notice the black, and you see what they can do as opposed to the gray, what they can't do. So I thought this might be a good resource for you all traveling to other countries based on resources available in that country to help you understand what they can offer. And the best part of this document is this is evidence-based, but it's not the art of medicine, right? That's another component of caring. They have to be brought together. But this has a wonderful bibliography. So my fellows might say, according to NCCN guidelines, but they've got to know the literature. So they have a great bibliography. You can click on it, and you can bring up the primary source. So you'll always be able to go to the data where this came from, okay? So you always have your primary source. And just in closing, I was really struck by how much we have in common. We might have different paths, we might have different careers, but in common, what we do is to enhance the lives of other people. And this was really brought home to me when I heard Dr. Doran's closing remarks, because they're so similar to what I was going to tell you. We never talked about it. And in fact, I've never met Dr. Doran in person. We've always been on Zoom or Blue Jeans, and so we've known each other. But in closing, I would like to echo her words and many other people's words here too, that do what you love, something you're passionate about. Do it well, be proud of it, take care of other people like you'd like your family to be cared for. And, maintain your relationships, foster them, enhance them, but keep your relationships and take good care of yourself. You'll be better at what you do. And with that, thank you all for the invitation. I left you my email, and also, if you have any questions I can't answer, the Dean of Admissions invited you all. Please send email, send it to me. I'll talk with her. Anything we can do to help you in your careers. Thank you.